it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Well, somebody's been lying to the people, and it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. I tell you, it's gone on far too long. Yeah, somebody's been lying to the people, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Did you know too many poor people are dying, and it's gone on far too long? Yes, it's gone on far too long. I tell you, it's gone on far too long. Yeah, too many poor people are dying, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore, and we won't be silent anymore, and we won't be silent anymore.
We wanted 140 people, a minimum, to come today to dedicate Pennsylvania Avenue that we're going to fill up on June 18, 2022. We just left a report that showed that poor and low-wealth people died at a rate 5 times higher in some places, in some aspects of this pandemic, and the evidence in places was sometimes deliberately not tracked. And that if it had been tracked, there would have been all of these unnecessary deaths would have not occurred on top of what was already happening. Each of you today will represent millions of people. We will stretch out this line. We will not bunch up today. We want this line to stretch as long, so at least 10 to 15 feet apart at all times, not for COVID, but to make sure that it's long enough and we stay in Pennsylvania Avenue long enough that people know us, see us, and are very clear that June 18th, the Mass Poor People's Low-Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington to the polls is not a day, but a declaration. And not an end, but a continuation. And from that day, we will intensify and embolden our agitation. But we're going to first make sure the nation sees clearly who we are. Reverend Dr. Liz Steele Harris is going to frame us up for today, and then we're going to go through a condensed version of the declaration, why we march, why we assemble. Let me ask all clergy to just raise your hand. Clergy that are out here, my brothers and sisters, we love you. Thank God for you. All impacted persons that are here who identify poor, low wealth, and all advocates that are here today, because you don't know anything else to do but to stand up and fight for what's right.
Jeremiah. Serious, crying out peace, peace, when there is no peace. What we heard in this Poor People's Pandemic Report and what we knew going into the COVID-19 pandemic is that there is no peace, there is no justice for almost half of the richest country in human history. We heard that 2 times, 3 times, up to 5 times the number of people who died from COVID and the pandemics that preceded it and have continued through it were from poor the poorest counties across this nation. Our nation has gotten used to death, especially when it's the death of poor and low-income people. But as we just sang out, we will not, we cannot, and we are not being silent anymore. We will rise together, show the pain, wail, cry out, and show our power to enact all of our demands, not just a few, from the bottom up. And so let us indeed be here to declare that we are coming and we are ready, and we're poor and we're clergy and we're advocates and we're activists and we're organizers, and we are far from silent. The stones around us and us are crying out. There is no peace, and so we are working for justice.
Amen. We got a lot of work to do, y'all. We got to scream it. This is got to scream it. So today start. When we march, you can say it like, let me see both sides of those you aren't wearing party placards. We want everybody to hold up June 18th. Some of you have June 18th, and the person on the other side of you have the facts. One side, if it's 2 by 2, there you go. Because this is about getting the message out. We're not just walking among ourselves, and we won't be satisfied with just ourselves. We have to call this nation. Hey, Pam from West Virginia. All right, we're leaving here right after this, headed to West Virginia for a 5-day march across West Virginia, right into territory of Joe Manchin, right past his nasty coal mines. So this is mobilization time. All right, and Reverend Dr. Jackson, our executive director, is going to lead us in the proclamation as we dedicate this space and this street.
I'm going to ask all of the clergy who are joining with me in this to come stand close. All over this country and from Washington, D.C., people are preparing to come on June 18th for the Mass Poor Peoples and Low-Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington and to the polls. We must assemble. Say, we must assemble. We must assemble and march here in the nation's capital to summons a moral response to the pain of 140 million poor and low-wealth people, low-wage workers, and all of us impacted by the injustices of poverty, racism, the war-based economy, ecological devastation, denial of health care, and the false moral narrative of religious nationalism. We must, say we must. We must organize a sustained moral fusion movement that seeks to shift the moral narrative, build power, and present before the nation a redemptive third reconstruction agenda that builds from the bottom up. We must, say we must. We must challenge the notion that what we are doing is the best we can do. Today, America has to guarantee living wages, adequate income, health care, affordable housing, quality public education, expanded voting rights, access to democracy, fair taxation, debt relief, just immigration, a climate where we can all thrive, and a world committed to peace rather than violence and war. This we declare, for this we must do. When? Today. When? Today. When? Today.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Angela Martin, and along with Rabbi Alana Suskind, we are the co-chairs of the Maryland Poor People's Campaign. And we invite you to join us as we compel the nation to mourn, feel the pain and the power of our people, and see that the path of healing and justice is possible. Join us to move this society beyond the false choices of liberal versus conservative and right versus left, and toward the essential question of our time, right versus wrong. Join us to revive and renew the heart and the soul of this democracy. Join us.
Join us. Join us. Join us. Join us.
We assemble and march because the promise of our democracy requires that we address the interlocking injustices of systematic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism, and the war economy, and the false narrative of religious nationalism. The very foundation of the country has been made brittle and broken under the weight of injustice. It is time to heal the wounds of our society and declare a moral revival across the land.
It is time. 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 It is time.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es María Chavalán Sud. Soy Maya Cachiquel. Soy una de las mujeres y hombres que nos hemos refugiado en iglesias santuarios porque ICE nos obligó a encerrarnos en una iglesia para salvar nuestras vidas. Y no estamos tranquilos porque no nos han quitado la orden de deportación. Nos juntamos y marchamos porque antes de la pandemia 250,000 personas morían cada año, o sea, 700 personas cada día por la pobreza y desigualdad. Y mientras tanto, las riquezas de los billonarios creció lo más alto durante la peor crisis económica y pública de una generación. Muchas gracias.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Leo. I'm Maria's interpreter, and Maria is one of our sanctuary leaders in Virginia. And we assemble in March because there was 140 million poor and low-wealth people before the pandemic, and 250,000 people died every year. That is over 700 people every day because of poverty and inequality. Meanwhile, billionaires and their wealth is at an all-time high, even during the worst economic and public health crisis of a generation.
Everybody has a right to live. We won't be silent.
We won't be silent anymore. I'm Reverend Abhijan Amanchi, and I am here on behalf of Unitarian Universalists and Sadhana, an organization of progressive Hindus. We assemble and march because the pandemic revealed deep fissures in our society, exposing long-term racial and economic inequalities like a contrast die in our body politic. Nearly 1 million people have died from the coronavirus. Millions of workers have been called essential while being treated as expendable. And millions more are facing low wages, unemployment, eviction, hunger, and the denial of health care.
No more.
No more.
We won't be silent.
We won't be silent
anymore.
Hello, my name is Kyla Warman, and today we assemble in March because we are living through an historic crisis of democracy. Voting rights are under attack in almost every single state. Voter suppression targets people of color and undermines the right to vote of women, of youth, the elderly, and the poor. It also ushers in policies that hurt millions of people through attacks on immigration, living wages, health care, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, public education, social welfare programs, and more.
And we won't be silent.
We won't be silent
anymore.
Your brother, Imam Safed Abed Chadovich of the Islamic Society of North America. We assemble and march because the climate crisis is devastating our communities and our planet. With poor and low wealth people hit first and worst by the raging fires, the floods, the drought, and pollution. While fossil fuel companies are getting tax breaks, the 140 million are facing the highest cancer rates in the country. Our water is being shut off, and our homes and holy sites being mined, poisoned, and destroyed.
Never, never will we turn back and stop the fight for justice.
Good afternoon. I'm Liz McNichol, a chair of the DC Poor People's Campaign. We assemble in March because there's nothing just about a nation that has spent $21 trillion on war, policing, surveillance, and prisons over the past 20 years amid widespread poverty and economic insecurity. Instead of fighting poverty, our nation has invested in a long-term war on the poor at home and across the world. As is always the case with war and violence, poor and low-wealth people lose the most. Today, we must come to see that war itself is an enemy of the poor everywhere.
We will fight the enemy of poverty every day. We will love those who promote poverty until they change. We will love them enough to tell them the truth, to march on them, to engage in any way, non-violently, to change, transplant the heart of this nation. Do we have any more? One more. All right.
We assemble in March because for far too long, poor people, people of color, indigenous nations and immigrant families, women, children, the disabled, LGBTQ communities have been under attack, pitted against each other, blamed for society. Into a united force to reconstruct the nation from the bottom up, from the bottom up, from the bottom up,
From the bottom up, from the bottom up, from the bottom up. So are we ready? We're going to, something just came to me in a minute. We're going to, which way do we go? Liz and I are going to walk with this banner, and then we're going to step back and let impacted people who are impacted, if you were a speaker today, let you carry it. Y'all can bring Reverend Graylin Haglin for part of this. He thinks I don't listen to him. But he said to me one day, and I heard you 3 years ago, you didn't thought I'd listen to you. He said, Reverend Barber, if you're going to come to D.C., it's all right to go over to the monument, but they expect you to do that. He said, go read the history. Originally, they were supposed to meet at the monument first. Bayard Rustin and others wanted them to meet in the street during the week, and the monument would have been the conclusion. He said, if you're going to have a movement, at some point that movement has to be justly disruptive. This is the first of that. So we said we want Pennsylvania Avenue. Some folk, Brother Graylin, has said to us, why don't y'all have a party on the 18th? Since you're on Pennsylvania, we said, oh no. Oh no. They said, you sure you want all these poor and low wealth? Yeah, on Pennsylvania Avenue, yes. Why not go to a park somewhere? Hell no. We're going right down the street, right in the middle of the day, as a sign that this ain't it. We're going to make the case. There are 6 steps to massive nonviolent civil disobedience. And one of them is you have to make sure the people you are challenging know exactly what they have done and exactly what you want. And on that day, we will make that case, and it will not be people speaking on behalf of people, but it will be people speaking on their own behalf and for all of us. And so this is the first. Say, this is the first. So when we go out into the street, we're going to do one thing, But understand, we are not going inside parks and places anymore. When we move, we coming right past the White House and right in front of the Congress where the problems are. And the people most impacted. Because it's not them, it's all of us. Every one of us is damaged by all of the death and destruction that's being caused by unnecessary policies that keep poverty alive. Let's do this. Clinton and Sela, somebody take this sound thing, because I want to do one thing when you line up in the street. We need folk 15 feet apart so that the line, don't try to catch up. Let it last a long time, right? Spread it out. And those of y'all that have been wanting to holler because you upset about what's going on, well, as we march, now where are the best channels we got? And the movement channel, where are they? You got a bullhorn? We want you to holler like you ain't never hollered. We want you to sound like you got some righteous anger. We want you to sound like you got some righteous pain. You don't lament quietly. You don't wail quietly. And you don't cry quietly. Let's do this.
All right, friends, we're going to line up down this ramp. Impacted leaders, impacted persons, please, toward the front. We're going to go 2 by 2, followed by faith leaders and advocates, moral leaders. 2 by 2. You're going to be following Clinton and Zilla's lead. Impacted leaders first. 2 by 2. 2 by 2. Followed by moral leaders. 2 by 2. Lining up all the way back here. 2 by 2.
I need 2 bottles of water, y'all. I need 2 bottles of water.
Marshall, can we get 2 bottles of water? Watch these poles go.
Sound system, yeah, just stay even with the first row.
Turn, we're going this way to go across the street over to the other side.
Everybody rising! Everybody rising! Everybody rising! Everybody rising! Everybody rising!
They're coming.
Everybody rising! 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 Everybody
My brothers and sisters, we dedicate this street not as Pennsylvania Avenue per se, but as a street that poor and low-wage people will have a mass assembly and moral march on Washington and to the polls, to the People's Street, a street that will never, ever not be welcome to our protests and our challenge. We're on this street in the midst of death of poor people. We will declare life and that this nation must change. And all we want is simply what the prophets wanted. Come here, Reverend Jackson. All we want is simply what the prophets wanted, what Martin wanted, what Ella wanted, what Cesar Chavez wanted, what poor and low-wage people, what Pam from Alabama wanted before she died. What everybody wanted is for justice to roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. God says, I want oceans of it, streams of it, rivers of it, and it shall be. And it shall be. Because we are the beginning of the rushing tide of justice. All right, y'all take it.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. And when do we want it? What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? What do we want? Justice. And when do we want it? What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. And when do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. And when do we want it? Now. When I say we want, you say justice. We want. Justice. We want. Justice. When I say we want, you say justice. We want. Justice. We want. Justice. When I say we want, you say living wages. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say living wages. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say health care. We want. Healthcare. We want. Healthcare. When I say we want, you say health care. We want. Healthcare. We want. Healthcare. When I say we want, you say voting rights. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say voting rights. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say justice. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say justice. We want. 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 When I say we want, you say justice. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say justice. We want. We want. We want. We want. What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? When do you want it? What do you want? And when do you want it? When I say we want, you say living wages. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say living wages. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say health care. We want. We want. When I say we want, you say the bottom's on the top. We won't stop till the bottom's on the top. Say what? We won't stop till the bottom.
Got help on my mind.
Brothers and sisters, nothing about this is going to be easy. And you should have seen from the back the power of that line, just what we have today, but imagine it with thousands and thousands more. As I was coming down listening and the power of your sounds, I was reminded, Dr. Jackson, that it says in Isaiah 58, you must sound like a trumpet. And then in the Gospels, it says in the book, the epistles, that whenever there's trouble in the land, there must be a certain sound. Whatever way you pray, whatever way you meditate, I want you to meditate and ask for that sound. When you shout a number or you shout a fact, ask for that sound. that cuts through all the other noise, that lets people know that something's different about us, because this city is used to rallies. That's why the first couple of hours we're here, it's going to be so different, because people have been so used to having people speak on behalf of people. I want to ask all of our singers, chanters, all the states, make sure when you come, we have a cadre of people who are impacted to also lead our chants, so that not only are they saying the words, but the nation is hearing the heart. We got a hard job, y'all. Not impossible. God said we could do it. It's hard in this time to say you're going to call people to lamenting, because we've even lost the knowledge of how to lament, if we ever had it. You know, this country doesn't like to apologize, repent, or cry. And yet that's the only thing. It's a hard job, but we can do it, right? We need everybody tweeting and texting and emailing everybody you know and telling them to be here. Not for a day, but for a declaration. Say, not for a day, but a declaration. We need to have, as St. Francis of Assisi, he prayed for the right kind of anger at the injustices. He prayed for the right kind of tears. We have to do the same. Nothing about this ends on the 18th. We had planned to do this on the 20th, 2020. So this is the third time, this is just in person. Because we knew, I don't care how many people we get online, we had 3 million people. The nation's got to see bodies. Some of you would say, well, when are we going to do some other we ain't telling everything we're going to do right now. You just get folk here that are willing, because we can't afford not to do this. Everything you got, put it in, calling this nation to account. It's hard because folk want to go back to normal. It's hard because you got to be a little crazy, a little, what King say, a little maladjusted to think that we can make a difference. We get told sometimes, well, media doesn't want to talk about this. When we call from the literature, the media said that executive said, no, I don't really want to talk about poor people. We got to make it happen. We got to make it happen. Y'all ready to make it happen? Yeah. I love the scripture. It said, don't be a peace prayer. It says, be a peacemaker. And the kind of peace it is we're talking about is the shalom peace, the peace that's only but justice. And since we're not an undisciplined movement, how many folk got to go back that way to your cars? Anybody, where's more folk going? Y'all just, where's y'all buses? What y'all get now? Are we all going, Grayling Park that way? Are you going back that way too? So since we're not undisciplined, no, we're not going just today. We going in. Y'all see them doors? We going in. Yeah. But not today. We want you to go back disciplined as the way we came down the sidewalk. They can't do nothing about that. And sidewalk. And how many of y'all have already texted and tweeted out what you're doing today? Everybody right now, get a picture. Get your phones out. Get your cameras out. Send it to everybody, even Fox News. Send it to them too. Yes. Everywhere. Send it everywhere. We must embolden and intensify our agitation. And since this is the remembrance of the death date, the murder of Dr. King, can I just quote one line of what he said? You know, most of the time people want us to go to just I have a dream and all that. But in that last night, listen at this. He was standing with poor people, not for them, with them. He said, people said, what's going to happen to me? He said, the question is what will happen to them. But then he said, and there were a lot of people that didn't want him to say it. People that turned away from him, wanted to only talk about American exceptionalism. He said, the nation is sick. And people are dying. He then said, we must give ourselves to this movement. Nothing would be more tragic than for us to turn back now. We must give ourselves to this movement. We either go up together or we go down together. In memory, as we lift his voice, because we can't lift his body, I like that. Would somebody say nothing would be more tragic than for us to turn back now? The nation is sick. We know the healing that needs to take place. And it cannot happen until we address poverty and all of the collateral damage and interlocking injustices. We must give ourselves to this movement. We either go up together or we go down together. Nothing would be more tragic than for us to turn back now. Can we have a stomp? Y'all had a stomp going over there that sounded like a march. How did it sound? Do it, brother. Come on. If your knees ain't bad, come on. Sound like we're coming. We ready. Come on, y'all. We are ready. We ready. Here we come. Come on now. We are ready. Oh, yes. We are ready. Oh, yes. We are ready. Here we come. Here we come. We are fighting. We are fighting. Oh. Fighting. We are ready. Here we come. We're ready. We are ready. Play that. Play that. We are ready. Come on, put those hands together. We are standing. We are standing. Oh yeah. We are standing. Oh yeah. We are standing. Here we come. We ready. We ready. We are ready. Can y'all keep that going as we go back? Ready. Oh yes. We are ready. Robin, lead us back. Yes, yes. We are fighting. We are fighting. Oh. We are fighting. We are fighting. Let the banner in front. We are truth telling. We are truth telling. We are truth telling. We are truth telling. Here we come. We are ready. Take this. We are ready. We're ready. Here we come. We're ready. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready. Here we come. We're standing. We are standing. We are standing. We're standing. Here we come. We are standing. We are standing. We're standing. Here we come. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready. We're ready. Here we come. We're ready. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready. Here we come. We are marching. We are marching. We are marching. We are marching. Here we come. We are marching. We are marching.